contrast. Some people crave it, others hate it. Other than abusing the slider in Lightroom, pushing film is a great way to add contrast into your photos. Ilford HP5 is a perfect example of this. At box speed, HP5 has an incredibly wide exposure latitude, but the photos tend to be a little flat. Pushing at 2 stops though, adds a decent amount of contrast, as well accentuates the grain, creating some really lovely photos. 90% of the time when I shoot HP5 push 2 stops, all I have to do is scan it and crop it. No more, no less. The extra contrast and grain make for more brutalistic and punchy black and white photos, which I love, especially in metropolitan areas. So this is where my problems start. I've been experimenting with pushing different film stocks, both black and white and color lately. So I had purchased some Rollei Retro 400S. This film stock's super contrasty at box speed, and I decided, hey, let's push it 2 stops. Let's add to it. Honestly, I was so preoccupied in whether or not I could push this film stock 2 stops, I never stopped to think if I should. So I was in Seattle today, and I brought 2 different cameras with me. First camera being my Canon EOS 30, paired with a 17 to 40mm f4L lens. I was thinking the ultra wide angle setup on this lens would make for some really interesting street shots here in Seattle. As for my second camera, I'd be shooting the Pentax 6.7 paired with a 45mm f4 lens. I wasn't shooting medium format though, but I was actually shooting a second roll of 35mm. I've been experimenting with panoramas and medium format cameras here for a bit, and I actually really like the Pentax 6.7 for this, because if you load it correctly, you can get 18 shots out of a roll. Not bad, right? Technically, you lose half the roll, but the photos are twice as wide, so you're kind of breaking even. At least that's what I tell myself. It was an extra wet day today, and I probably should have brought the Nikonos, but the forecast said it'd be dry. I love that I bought a weatherproof camera to shoot in the rain, and it only experiences dry conditions. It's starting to become a trend, me not using the right gear at the right time. So these interiors, you can't really make anything out. These frames come out looking like duotones because there's such a lack of gray in each of the photos. It definitely makes these higher contrast scenes more moody, but when is it too much? I probably should have metered more so for the shadows rather than the midtones. Yeah, the highlights would have been blown out, but I wonder if it would have preserved more details in the midtones. Do you guys ever get ahead of yourself and take a photo before really analyzing the scene? Because I do it all the time. Take this photo for example. It's fine. This panorama features downtown, the stadiums, the wharf, the Ferris wheel, as well as a ferry. All iconic parts of Seattle. but I didn't really feel confident in my composition after firing the shutter. However, after seeing that the fairy was actually departing, I decided to take a second shot. I like this photo a lot more. It already feels less confined. As well, the nice leading lines going from left to right along the horizon take your eye right to the fairy. I really like this second shot a lot. I think it's way better than the first one. Again, each of those landmarks from the first photo are in the second one, but the different angle along with the changes in frame make for a stronger photo. I circled back through downtown and didn't find anything that was really truly inspiring, so I decided it was as good a time as any to bail and head to the next location. At this point, I ended up meeting up with Clara, who had just gotten off of work. We ended up going to Bizarre Brewing, a recommendation from Claire's coworker and friend Nick, who ended up joining us for a round of drinks.
Double fisted.
Alright, let's pivot. We're going to talk about the problems of pushing Rollei Retro 400S. You're probably thinking, the problem was that the exposure latitude on this film was completely destroyed when pushing it. Yeah, the photos are dark and contrasty to say the least, but that's what I was kind of going for. They're definitely more intense than I had actually wanted them to be, and my metering could have been better. But no, that's not the problem. The real problem with this film stock comes when you develop it. Honestly, I've been hands-off when it comes to developing my film for my entire photographic career. I usually just go to a lab, drop off my film, tell them how I need it processed, pay them some cash, and then just wait for my confirmation that they're ready for pickup. Since switching to the Tacoma Photo Center though for my film processing, I've been taking more creative liberties. Those creative liberties have led me to experimentation. And this experimentation, it bit me in the ass. So my basic understanding of pushing film is you're actually underexposing your film and developing it for longer to get your final accurate exposed image. I kind of presumed that every black and white film at box speed developed at the same time rate, about 7 or 8 minutes. Honestly, I'm an idiot when it comes to processing, don't get mad at me. So let's get into that problem. I didn't know that Rollei Retro 400S had a development time of 15 minutes at box speed. So if we generalize this, a one-stop push would be around 30 minutes. So I asked for 2 stops though. So when I asked for a 2-stop push, I was asking them to develop my film for an hour. If I had taken this film to a lab and asked for a 2-stop push, and they were familiar with the data sheets on this, they probably would have charged me a significant amount of money. That, or they probably would have declined me. Luckily for me, Drew over at the Tacoma Photo Center is an amazing person, who's always down for a unique or odd challenge when it comes to developing film. I kid you not, he's tried to resurrect E3 chemistry, which if you don't know, is slide film chemistry that predates E6, and it's kinda wacky. One of the main steps when developing with E3 chemistry is to take the film out of its tank and directly expose it to a light source. Yeah, because that's always a good idea. Anyways, for those of you who do develop, I was told that this film was developed in a mixture of 1 part developer, 3 parts water, for about an hour. As well, I was told that this film probably could have been developed for an additional 10 minutes or so. These 2 roles have me thinking though. I wonder if it's time for me to start developing my own film. I honestly feel bad asking someone to develop 2 rolls of film for over an hour, just for some mediocre shots. Luckily for me, the Tacoma Photo Center actually offers courses, such as Introduction to Darkroom, for those of you who are beginners, as well as Intermediate Darkroom, for those of you who have developed film in the past, but just need a refresher. If you're interested, I'll leave a link in the description down below. Just to clarify, this video is not sponsored by the Tacoma Photo Center, nor do they ask me to say anything. As a non-profit community art space that has done so much to build up the photo community here in the South Sound, I just wanted to give them a shout out. As for me though, I think I'm over experimenting with development techniques. At least for now though. I'm thinking it's gonna be a box speed summer.